Welcome to Resume the Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Page, and I'm here to spread the message that you can, in fact, be happy in your career. I'm a former executive recruiter turned career coach, and I am obsessed with learning about why people have chosen their career, what led them to that decision, and how they achieved happiness in the process. So, come join the ongoing conversation that exposes you to career paths of all origins with one thing in common: happiness. So, press play and let's resume the conversation with this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Resume. Today, we are thrilled to welcome Richard Clarke, whose journey is as eclectic as it is inspiring. With beginnings that saw him venturing from running a bar in Turkey to picking fruit in Australia and teaching English in Tanzania, our guest embodies the spirit of exploration. In 2001, a move to the Canary Islands led him from teaching into the realms of IT, igniting a passion, but also revealing a gap, a search for deeper fulfillment. So our guest's path is a testament to the power of introspection and the courage to pivot. Inspired by the transformative insights in Start With Why and Let My People Go Surfing, he embarked on a mission not just to build a business, but to foster happiness, which I love. It's so on brand for this podcast. And this vision gave birth to Secret Source, which sounds like a happiness spy company. It's actually an IT development company that is based in Spain, and it is where happiness is not just a buzzword, but a key performance indicator. Under his leadership, Secret Source flourished, growing a team and attracting clients who share their core values of joy and satisfaction in both work and delivery. And after about 5 years, our guest, Richard, took a step back from the day-to-day operations, passing the CEO torch on, and is now focusing on spreading the gospel of well-being in the workplace. And he dedicates his time now to teaching others how to leverage the science of well-being and happiness to enhance team performance, proving that success and fulfillment can go hand in hand. So join us as we welcome Richard Clarke, who has literally pursued happiness as a goal. Welcome, Richard.
Hello, and lovely to be here.
I love it. You know, I started this podcast because I was really confused about why people are very almost apathetic or complacent in their unhappiness in regards to their career. So your whole story really spoke to me. And I like to ask everybody the same first question. So if you were at a dinner party somewhere on the Canary Islands, which sounds like it would be like so lovely, and someone asked you, what do you do? How would you respond?
I would say I teach companies how they can make their workplaces happier.
And how do people typically respond to that?
They go, wow, I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah, I love that. I wish people did know.
Yeah, they're a bit surprised because a lot of people think, well, happiness at work that's not really a thing. So, and then I talk to them and they're usually pretty engaged by the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you kind of hit right on the other reason that I started this whole podcast. And that is a lot of jobs exist that we don't even know exist, right? Yeah. So you can create your own career. And also there are just so many jobs that when people hear about them, they're like, I didn't even know that was a job. So cool. Thanks for being the walking embodiment of this podcast. That is very convenient for me. So what did you want to be as a kid?
Oh, okay. After sort of astronaut, cowboy, Zorro, I was definitely Zorro for a while.
Definitely. Yeah.
I had no idea, to be honest. Well, I do remember when I was about 15, we had to choose, in England, you have to choose what subjects you do for A-levels when you're 17 and 18. And you choose it based on what career you want to do. And everyone knew then they wanted to be a lawyer, they wanted to be an engineer or whatever. I had absolutely no idea, literally no idea what I wanted. And I remember the career advisor saying to me, if you don't know what to do, just do something you like. All right. Just do something that makes you happy. And I just fixated on that from the age of 15. I just wanted to do stuff that made me happy. And my life goal for about well, since then, has ever been just to make myself happy and find out what actually does make me happy. So yeah, I've just sort of stumbled across what I'm doing at the moment.
No, I think that's really profound for a 15-year-old to like be in touch with.
No, I don't think it was profound. I think it was just the easy option, to be honest. It was the easy option because people would say, "What do you want to do?" And I didn't know. So I said, "Oh, I just want to be happy." And they said, "What does that mean?" I don't know. And so, yeah, I went off to Turkey and ran a bar for a bit, taught water skiing. And when they were saying, "When are you going to settle down?" No, I'm happy. I just want to be happy.
But that is very important. So I'm going to push back gently because I don't think that is the easy option, because you do have a lot of those like external voices, like, and I'm not saying it's your parents, but just generally speaking, parents or teachers or coaches or, teachers, did I say that, who kind of all well-intentioned, but pressure you into, oh, you're really good at this subject in school. Look into whatever, law or finance or, any of those things that kind of offer a stable, well-known, acceptable career, right? So I think it's actually really hard to work against that and to just go off on your own saying, I want to be happy and I don't really care what society is, expecting me to do.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm really lucky. My parents always wanted me to go and explore the world. And so it was just normal for me. So people were going, wow, that's such a big step you taking, going and moving to Turkey, going and moving to Australia or whatever. But for me, it was normal because my parents they encouraged it. So I didn't think of it as a big step to do these things. There was a point after I'd been in Turkey for a couple of years, I came back and I remember I was in the car on the way back home with my girlfriend that I hadn't actually told my mum about. So she picked us up from the airport. I said, here's my girlfriend. And she said, so Richard, what are you doing now? And my girlfriend just popped out, oh, we're off to Australia in 3 months. She went, oh, Richard. I expect me
what
to
are you up to now?
Exactly. But my mum's been amazing. She's supported me throughout my whole life. So I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah. What did your parents do? Because that's wonderful and interesting that they were very supportive and almost like pushing you to go explore. I think that's so cool and not normal.
Yes.
As you were going through school and you just wanted to be happy, when did that kind of become an issue, if it did?
What do you mean? That I wasn't happy or that, what do you mean?
I mean, so at some point, as you were kind of like bebopping around the globe, which is very, very cool, as I was doing my research on you, there was a line and I was like, ooh, that's super relatable, where I think you were in some very interesting country and I think I remember the line because it was like, you're wearing like a shark tooth necklace with like bleached hair and you were very, very happy, but you weren't fulfilled. So,
okay.
I guess the question is, what is the difference between happiness and fulfillment?
Oh, God, that's a deep one. Right. Okay. So I'd been traveling for a number of years and I was in Australia and having a lovely time. Well, I was in Asia by then and having an amazing time, just amazing time. Every day was amazing, properly living in the moment every day. But after about 4 years, I realized that even though I was happy, even though I was having joy every single day, doing amazing things, deep down, there was something missing. And at the time, I put it down to, I had no sort of purpose, really. I was just sort of enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And no sense of future or anything like that. So at that point, I was with my wife, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. We thought, well, we'll come back to Britain and we'll live normal lives and that will fulfill us. And we tried that. And that didn't work. And then that was missing other stuff. And then so we went over to Gran Canaria and the journey continued.
Yeah. So what is it about having a purpose that is useful? Like, why is having a purpose useful? If you're happy, right? And if you are properly living in the moment every single day, why even like go after having a purpose? Like why disrupt the happiness?
Because I get asked this question all the time. What does happiness mean? And you Google it and there's 100 different answers. So the way I see it is you've got your happiness, your day-to-day happiness. Oh, that meal, that lovely meal with my friends, that makes me really happy, right? Then there's this sort of underlying level of happiness, sort of contentment with your life that you have, the satisfaction with your life. And even though I was having those ups and downs during the day, lovely meals, amazing walks or whatever basic experiences, my underlying level of happiness was quite low. And I think to boost that underlying level of happiness, there's certain things you need. And one of them is purpose. Another thing is having friends around, this sense of growth. But I think purpose is really important to your underlying sort of level of like contentment. And that's what I was missing. That's what I was missing then.
Yeah, almost like a foundation for like the happiness to rest on, kind of.
Exactly. Yeah. They talk about in these sort of happiness experts, they talk about everyone having like a base level of happiness, whether you're a 7 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10. Everybody's different. And you can actually, by doing certain things, changing, being more grateful and stuff like that, you can actually increase your base level of happiness. And I think my base level of happiness was just, it was quite low. Well, it wasn't low, but it was sort of 6 out of 10. Even though I was getting 9 out of 10s every single day, it would drop down to 6 out of 10. And I wanted to lift it to 7 or 8 even.
Yeah. So when you moved back to Britain and went off and did kind of the quote unquote normal thing, right?
Yeah.
And that was like not the answer.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but you read, and this was so interesting to me. I was like, I don't know if I've ever actually met someone who's like, I read 2 books and they both completely changed my life. So I just think that's really interesting. And I wanted to ask you about it. So what brought you to those 2 books? How closely did you read them together? And first of all, obviously, like, what are those books? And can you tell us about them both and their effects on you?
Yeah. So I think there are 4 books. I've read lots and lots of books over like business books and normal books. And there are 4 books which I think have genuinely changed my life, right? And the 2 books you're talking about I read in 2013, and they were Start With Why by Simon Sinek and Let My People Go Surfing by, I can't pronounce it, Yvon Chouinard. He's the owner of, it's a French name, and there are French listeners screwing their faces up now. He's the owner of the founder of Patagonia. And I read the Let My People Go Surfing first, and I found it really inspirational. Basically, it's the story of how they started. And what I got from the book was he didn't start this company to make money, right? He didn't start it to become rich. He started it to basically have money to go climbing with his friends. And then he continued it to just do good things, right? He wasn't interested in making lots and lots of money. Obviously, you have to make money to survive, but his main goal was to just be good. And that was, wow. So you can actually set up a company to do that. And then Start With Why. Basically, I read it, and I've met lots of people who've read that book, and they don't come away with much from it. They say, oh, it's an interesting business book. But for me, it really, really affected me, because I thought, wow, I don't have a why. I don't have a purpose in life. I don't have my own why. And I remember I was on holiday. I was in Tenerife at Christmas with my wife and my kids. And I just remember sitting on the balcony and just going, what is my why? What is my purpose in life? And I went through it, and my wife was helping me, and we're trying to work out what gave me the most satisfaction. And I realized what gave me the most satisfaction was helping people. I love helping people, and specifically making people happy. And after that, I thought, right, I'm going to set up a company. It doesn't matter what the company is. I'm just going to set up a company, and my goal is just to make as many people as happy as I can, because that'll fulfill my why.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And that's when my life changed. That's when my life changed.
What were the other 2 books?
Okay, these are a bit left field. Okay, so there's The Chimp Paradox. I don't know if you've read that one.
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, that was really cool, because that basically explained, when you get a bit moody sometimes, you can't really control it, and it explained that. But that really helped with my relationship with my wife and my kids and other people, because I understood how my brain was working. And the other one is The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Right.
Oh, nice. The Marie Kondo?
the Marie Kondo book, right? Yeah.
Nice.
Not because I emptied my house out, but because we did bags and bags of stuff left our house. But it just made me realize if you just focus on the things that bring you joy and keep the things that bring you joy in your life, you'll just be happier. And I have that's my philosophy now. One of my pieces, just keep things in my life that bring me joy. And my kids fully embrace it as well, which is really nice.
That is nice. So how many toys bring them joy and how many are strewn across your living room? Mine's a disaster.
Yeah, well, they're 14 and 16 now, so not too many toys. But
now it's gadgets, right?
Yeah, it is.
That's really interesting. I love that just the how books so impacted you, and that I can see that moment. Like you painted that picture so clearly of sitting on the balcony being like, what is my why? Because I think a lot of people have that moment. And I think it's really sweet and wonderful that your wife was like, they're helping you. Just out of curiosity, I know she's not the guest on the podcast, but did she have a very clear why? And was that helpful in her helping you? Or was it kind of like a symbiotic conversation where you were helping each other? Or were you the one in despair?
Do you know what? We had this conversation last night.
Oh, no way.
The dogs. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I said it's really cool that I have a really strong why and I really understand it. And I said to her, what's yours? My wife's a teacher, right?
Okay.
And she gets a massive amount of satisfaction from helping her kids. And she's also amazing. And so that's my why, my family, my kids. So that brings her so much fulfillment in life. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like an easy kind of answer for her. I love that.
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like in my experience, because I've had this type of conversation with friends and family, and it seems like, especially in partnerships, there tends to be one person who has like no problem, like knowing what their why is and going for it. And it's like very clear. And then the other person, there's always like the other person who's like, what am I doing with my life? And it's kind of like they have to go on more of a journey. And I think those types of people are kind of attracted to each other, like the wildness in one and like the stability in the other. I know anyway, from my experience, that's definitely true with me and my husband. So I definitely relate to that. I also want to talk to you and ask you about your research and I might be butchering this, but I think it was like the Google Aristotle psychological safety research, which I know really spoke to you. And I know that you went on a whole research, journey on what it is and how to implement it, because I think that is going to be one of those like buzzwords of 2024, because I started hearing about it the end of 2023. I have no idea when this episode is going to air, but I have kind of like, and maybe my ears just perk up to it now, but I feel like I'm hearing about it a lot more. So can you tell us about what that is?
Yeah. So when I started my company in 2014, I thought I'm going to make everybody happy. And problem is I had no idea how to do that. Right. Everybody thinks, oh, yeah, it's easy. Just get some sofas in the office and give them an extra day holiday on their birthday and get some free fruit and stuff like that.
Sure.
Maybe some nice perks, gym membership. Yeah, it doesn't really work. So I then went on this big journey trying to find out what it was. A lot of trial and error. And then I stumbled across Project Aristotle. Now, Project Aristotle was this massive study that Google did, 9 maybe.
Okay.
Someone's going to correct me. They were trying to find out what were the characteristics of their highest performing teams, right? And they looked at like 37,000 employees. They looked at everything: age, relationships, education, experience, everything like that. What was the characteristics of their highest performing teams? And they found that the most important thing was psychological safety, right? And psychological safety, it's when you're in a group and you feel safe to ask questions to other people, to give your opinions and even challenge others what they're saying, right? If you feel safe, you feel you're not going to be criticized. They're not going to say, oh, that was a silly question. And the way I like to explain it to people is how I didn't feel when I was at school, right? So you're in a classroom of 30 kids and the teacher says something, you just don't understand, right? You do not feel, in my school, I did not feel safe putting my hand up and going, sorry, can you repeat that?
Right.
And do you know what? I bet you the rest of the class didn't understand it either.
I was just that's what I was thinking. Yeah. It's like no one, probably one kid probably got it, if any, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, and that's psychological safety. And honestly, it's not the responsibility of the kids to feel safe. It's the responsibility of the teacher to make the kids feel safe in that class. And on my research in happiness, that is like the foundation. You need to feel psychologically safe at work. For anything else, you need to feel safe. Otherwise, you just can't be happy. If don't feel safe at work, you're just never going to be happy. Whatever salary you get, however good you promotions are, whatever, you're not going to be. It's the foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. And is that kind of isolated to speaking up in meetings, or does that, like, how else can you access or kind of implement psychological safety in like everyday work stuff? So if you're just sitting at your desk, like, is psychological safety, like, is that something that happens when you're working remotely, for example? Like, how does that kind of translate to just outside of the meeting room, I guess, is my question.
Everywhere, basically. Any interaction you have with another person, whether it's via email, chat, speaking, you have to feel safe to say what you want. And remote working, it's much more difficult to build that psychological safety than it is in an office environment. Because in an office, you hang around with people, you build relationships with them, but when you're remote, you don't naturally build those relationships.
Yeah. So how can companies or managers or HR, and maybe you can direct this, like, it does it fall in the managers? Is it totally an HR situation that then dictates to managers? How do the people creating the space do that? How do they create a psychologically safe space?
Okay, so in my opinion, right, it's the responsibility of the manager or the team leader to create that environment where people feel safe. Now, there's lots of little things you can do. The first thing really is to teach people what psychological safety means. Okay, show them what it looks like. Right, a psychologically safe team, basically everybody contributes about the same. They all ask questions. They all speak about the same amount. Not one person doesn't speak a lot more than the others. Right, that's what a safe team looks. Now, if you see your team doesn't do that, then there's probably something that you can do. So that's the first thing, is learn what it is and what good looks like. And then there are lots of little things you can do. So we had a team a few years ago, and we had this one developer, and is super shy, like really, really, okay. But when she spoke, you could barely hear her. She was an amazing programmer, right? But really shy. And so you chuck her in a room with five guys, and she doesn't say anything. So of course, yeah. You have to create an environment where she felt safe contributing. And so initially, what we did was, in any meeting, we'd give her the questions beforehand, right? And we'd say, right, we're gonna ask these questions: what went well, what can be improved, etc. So she could think about it, and she wasn't. And initially, we did actually make her speak up. We'd write them down. So we say, right, put your answers in the chat or something, and she felt safe doing that. And over time, she felt safer and safer with the team. And I remember about 2 years later, I dropped in on a Zoom call with them, and she was chatting away with the rest of the team.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It was amazing. You just have to make people feel comfortable, and then just build up their confidence.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you kind of pulled introversion versus extroversion into that, and especially like you ran an IT development company, right? So there are a lot of programmers, a lot of software developers, and all of that. And I used to recruit for a lot of software positions. My sister is a engineer, so she has like that brain, and extremely shy, like very, very shy. Sometimes getting people who are just not naturally, like, gabby, it's like kind of pulling teeth, right? And it's not bad. It's just like not what they want to do with their time, right? Like, and I know that there's like TED Talks about this and everything, but the company culture, like pretty globally, I'd say, really kind of favors the talkers, right? And the extroverted, and that really marginalizes people who are just naturally shy, like not to any fault of their own. It's just how they came out. So that's really interesting. So that's an interesting story, because it not only shows that you hired her despite the fact that she wasn't a big talker, but you saw the talent anyway, and were able to really create a safe space where she felt valued. And I think that is something that a lot of people who don't feel safe, in their companies, it's like it comes to being valued, right? Where it's like, and that is so important for performance and for progress, right, in your own career. That's very interesting. And I'm also, curious to know how you knew it was time to leave Secret Source, because it seems crazy to me. Like, you created this really cool company all based around happiness, and then you left. And I think it's interesting and confusing. And I think a lot of people who have that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think just hearing your story and how you're this adventurer, not only physically in the physical space, but also intellectually, I think a lot of people listening will resonate with that, because we're kind of told, like, you have one thing, you have one career path, and this is what you do. And, now it's a little bit more acceptable to have multiple. Tell us about that. Like, what prompted you to hand over the torch, and what was that transition like?
Okay. So again, it was a moment. And I was sitting, we got a little sofa in our kitchen. I was sitting on our sofa one evening, and my daughter, she was 14 at the time. She came in, and she just came in from school, and she said, "Oh, Daddy, I've only got 4 more summer holidays with you." And then just walked off. And I was like, "Oh my God. What? Yeah, exactly."
What? Oh my gosh. Way to
And she thought, oh, it's because I'm so old, and I'm going to be off soon. And she was really proud of it. And it hit me because we'd sort of always planned to take a gap, one of those family gap years, and take them out of school for a year. It never happened. And then I suddenly realized, oh my God, I've only got 4 more years, and I won't have any more more time, but I won't have any more summers. So I made my decision that right at that moment, right, I'm going to have the summers with my kids. In Spain, we have 8 weeks summer holidays, or 10 weeks summer holidays. So I thought, right, I'm going to spend the summers, and we're going to go traveling with them for the next 4 years. And so I came back the following week, told the rest of the team, so this is my plan. And so I sat down with the rest of the leadership team, and they said, look, you cannot stay as CEO and do this. It would just be totally unfair on the rest of us, because you'd just disappear for 10 weeks. We'd be in control. Then you'd come back and you'd want everything back, and we wouldn't have any. So I had to, the only solution, if I wanted to have that whole summer off, was to hand over the CEO role to someone else. And it took a while. It took 6 months. We were working with a coach, and she helped us do the transition. And we had that Christmas, I stepped down. That was it. And I've spent the last 2, 3, 4 summers with my kids. Yeah, 3 summers. Yeah, went to Costa Rica last year.
Yeah. Where else did you go? Tell us all the places.
Well, year 1 was COVID, so we stayed in the Canary Islands. We had a camper van, and we traveled around the Canary Islands.
Poor you in the scenario.
Then we went to Portugal one summer, Portugal and Spain, Costa Rica, Greece. And this year, interestingly, we made a short list for our kids. We said, where do you want to go? Is it Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Southeast Asia? And they said, no, we'd like to go to England. So they're British, but they've never lived there. So we've got a camper van, and we're driving around England and Scotland.
Oh, that's going to be so nice. So I'm sure I think that will be really, that will be one you remember, I think, just getting them Britishized, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So this is such an American question. Do they have British accents because they grew up speaking with you, right?
Yeah, they have British accents, but when they go to Britain, people say they sound a bit international, and it's weird. They don't understand British teenagers.
Oh, so really?
They understand what they're saying, but they don't understand a lot of the phrases because it's all slang. So
yeah. But do they speak Spanish fluently?
Yeah, they speak Spanish. Yeah.
So that's nice. Yeah. That's so cool. And oh my gosh, there's just like so many lessons there. One, it's so not obviously I'm American and I live in America, and just the whole concept of taking like 8 weeks off is like, that's a fantasy here. Like that
Yeah.
is not something people do. I know in Europe, it's like 6 weeks is what I've heard, and I have a good friend of mine is from Ireland, and that is very common, like where she's from in Ireland. But
Just to make it clear, I am very strange. Not many people take more than 2 weeks holiday a year. This is
okay, yeah.
This is totally
Okay, yeah. But I do think in Europe it's a little bit it used to be like 6 weeks, right?
Summer holiday. Well, the kids holidays, yeah, 6 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
And
Yeah.
yes.
So that's ballsy to take that much time off and to want to take, to be able to do that. But I think there's like such a huge lesson in understanding like what you have at the moment to cherish, right? And it's funny because I was just listening to some other podcast and I don't remember which one, but they were talking about how once you get to an age and as your parents get older, just like the different age brackets and how your time with your parents gets and your kids gets way more, way abbreviated as you enter into different phases. So like once your kids get to 18, it's like the amount of time you spend with them shrinks, like just shrinks, right?
Yeah.
And there was some story where it was like at some point you're only going to see, the people you see at holidays for X number, like 10 more times, or, like depending on what's it called, how old, the average age of humans, so it's kind of like this crazy kind of morbid big picture thing, but it all ties into happiness and living in the moment and having that why. So tell us now about what you're doing. So you decided to leave Christmas Day. Wonderful. Got to, celebrate the season. And then what?
So year one, I was just after I finished it, I just sort of didn't do anything for a while. Well, I was sort of just life admin, all those things that have built up for the last 15 years.
Life admin.
Yeah.
Love it.
Those photo albums of that holiday we did in 2006, that type of stuff. Did that for a few months, just get everything off the backlog. And then I wanted to sort of understand. I wanted to write down what I've learned over the last 10 years and really understand it. I know at the time I knew what made people happy. I didn't fully understand why some of the things we did made people happy. And so I spent basically a year sort of writing a bit of a book, but not really. But that whole process of doing it sort of deepened my understanding of what actually makes people happy at work and then how to do it. And then I sort of finished that journey probably at the start of the summer last year. And then I decided, right, I now know enough that I've got to share this with, this is really valuable stuff. People have got to learn this. And so I've been working since then on this program to be able to teach companies how to make their teams happier. And worked with a couple of companies already. And that's my new mission in life, to show business leaders how to make their companies happier, or team leaders.
Yeah. And virtually, or in person as well.
Virtually at the moment. I've only done virtually at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. So. Yeah. So if there are managers or bosses or CEOs listening, what is one thing they can do immediately to create a little bit more happiness in the workplace?
Okay, that's a trick question. Because there isn't one.
Sorry.
There isn't one thing that will work for everybody. Like, everybody's different. So everybody's different. Every team's different. So a thing that will work for one company have a massive effect will have zero effect on another one.
Okay.
So what I would suggest is, firstly, understand what it is that makes what makes people happy. So that's the first thing you want to do. Understand then understand your team. So you might already have an amazing team. They might be really close together, but they might be missing. They might not feel they have opportunities for growth. They might not feel they're learning anything. So then you need to focus on that. And then once you've done that, you'll sort of have a checkbox of things. So my team feels safe. My team feels they're part of a community, but they don't have a sense of purpose. And then you can work on little things. So just to give you, so I write a blog every week. and I share one. I call them 5-minute hacks. Right, they're one simple thing that you can do in your company each week that will make your team a little bit happier. Right,
Okay.
just a little bit happier. Right, and this will work for some teams, and some things will work for something. So, just to give you an example, the first one I did was change your coffee machine. Right, it sounds a bit strange, right? So we used to have an espresso machine in our office. We have 3 capsules, and everyone used to get up from their desk, put a capsule in, make their coffee, and go back and okay. And then somebody said to us, right, we'd like to have ground coffee. So we bought one of those stovetop things, you know, the mocha pots.
Mocha things, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we bought a big one that made 17 cups or something like that. Or 12 cups or something like that. It's a big thing, sat on the stove. Okay. And we gave it to the team. And what happened was amazing. So one person would get the coffee, would go and make it. And then they would say to the rest of the team, coffee's ready. And everybody, or 12 people, would leave their desks, come up to the kitchen, and they'd sit around and have coffee, right? For 15 minutes. And that just hadn't happened before. And and what we noticed was they were building relationships, and people from different teams were getting and stuff like that. So little things like that. So if your team doesn't speak to each other or doesn't have a sense of community, just give little behavioral nudges to get them to spend more time together. There's thousands that do that. Follow my blog, and then you'll learn.
Yeah, follow Richard's blog.
Yeah.
Well, Richard, you have been extremely patient. We had very annoying tech issues, which were, I don't know why, but we did. And Richard was extremely patient. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time and all of this knowledge. I'm so excited because I think this is so needed. It's just so needed. And I think it's taking this, what you're doing is really, in my opinion, taking a piece of wellness, right? And that's such a big word, I think now, where it's like wellness in the workplace, and it could be like health or, whatever. But I think this is like the most important part of it, because happiness affects everything. It affects your mood. It affects your health. Like, it affects so much. And we are at work so much. We're at work most of the time, right? So you have to be happy there. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? So I think what you're doing is just really wonderful. Is there anything that you want to mention that you have coming up next, or anything you want to mention that we didn't cover?
No, I write a weekly blog, and I give one little hack that you can use to read about in the office. Yeah, so just have a look at the blog, follow it, and you will be happier.
And you will be happier. And if you want to reach out to Richard, we're going to include all of his contact info and socials and all of that stuff in the show notes. But thank you so much. Thank you, Richard, for coming on Resume. And thank you for listening. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so grateful for your precious time and energy. And if anything resonated with you, please feel free to share with a friend and subscribe. If you're interested in career coaching, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Courtney@resume-careers.com and follow me on Instagram at Courtney Austin Page. Thank you so much, and see you next week.